Hello? owensd4@gmail.com. D? Why would it be G? No, it's not. 4@gmail.com. I can't do. No, it's just overnight stockroom. Mom, just say that. Why do I need a picture of that? I only have two jobs. What are you talking about? Merchandise pickup. Oh my god. I don't know. No, I don't. I did not start at Target 2 months ago. I've been there way longer than that. I started like March, I think. Yes. September 10th, 2014. Okay, I love you. It's kind of cool. Okay. The fuck? uh, sorry, I'm messing with the filters on this live video shit. It's kind of weird. This is a dream. All right. Just waiting for people to come in, I guess. Sorry about that call that I just got. Mom's asking me questions about crap, but whenever people decide to come in, I guess I'll just start the Q&A where you guys can see fucking 2 3 of me in my glasses. Okay, so I guess until that happens, I guess I'll just talk about my early experiences with the phone itself. Now, I'm recording this on the Note 8 because my V10's actually. My V10 caused an audio issue last time when I recorded on it, so I want to make sure that doesn't happen again. So now I just want to talk about my early experiences with the phone right now, recording from the Note 8 about the LG V30. Now, ask any sort of questions that you may want to ask about it. but I'm going to talk about my early experiences now. Now, I've had it for starting tomorrow a week, and as I said, I've been waiting 3 weeks to get this freaking phone. It's taken a while. So, the first thing I'm going to talk about is performance and how it feels to use this phone. Now, the phone is fairly light. It's not, hefty. It doesn't feel like a phone that you have to like lift weights or what the fuck ever to use. Some people think it's cheap because it feels cheap because of that. I personally don't, because I like a lightweight phone, especially since I've been using the Note 8 for over 2 months or so now. And the Note 8 is like this hefty beast. And it's kind of a contrast having the V30 and having the Note in my hands at the same time, where they pretty much have the same specs aside from, the Note 8 having an S Pen and 2 more gigs of RAM. They have the same battery, same, chipset and stuff like that. Similar screen technologies, similar aspect ratios, screen size, stuff like that. But to me, with the V30, I think, me personally, a lot of people hate the screen. And for me personally, I can't necessarily say I think that, because when I look at the V30 screen, it's not something that I've looked at AMOLED displays since the Note 3. I've never liked how Samsung likes to oversaturate their colors. I never liked how they like to, put this sort of like weird piss yellow filter on all my whites and make them yellow. Hey, what's up, explicit content? How's it going? Just getting into this right now. And yeah, what's your question? As that comes in, I'll just talk about. I just don't think that saying that the V30 screen is terrible is the right thing to say, because it's definitely not terrible. I actually like it more than what the Note 8 has to offer, because there are certain things that LG did with the display, as far as not making it a completely curved edge to edge display, that make it better for viewing angles and stuff like that, as far as looking at it straight on. When I look at my Note 8, frequency response. I'm not sure about frequency response of the quad DAC of the V30, but as far as, how high the DAC, how I know that the how high the yeah, the hi-fi quad DAC can drive, like, headphones that have a very high impedance of like 600 ohms. The V20 can do the same thing. And I haven't heard anything about frequency response, and I have no clue, but let me actually look that up. LG V30 quad DAC frequency. Because I've actually never heard about that either, to be honest. No one has ever talked about that. But sorry, I'm just looking it up. Like, I'm not the best to ask about that. Like, it's like basically like essentially, I can hear the difference between, say, the get my V20. between the V20 and V30. And I can't necessarily talk about stuff like frequency response because I'm not well equipped to talk about that. But as far as, say, if you have a V20 and you want to go to the V30 because they boasted a lot of like differences between what the DAC can, hi-fi quad DAC can do on here versus what can it do on here. And I couldn't say that as far as the V30 goes, if you like stuff, it keeps scanning my face. As far as the V30 goes, or is hearing me say V30 a billion times, but as far as this phone goes, when it comes to like reverb, when it comes to stuff like, you know, just overall clarity and, you know, bass, stuff like that, the V20 is like, it's really good. It is still really good. If you don't care about stuff like reverb, you know, hefty bass, stuff like that, you're not necessarily going to have this like life-changing experience. But custom equalizer, or I'll actually show, I got to plug in headphones first, but I'll show you. I have the Sennheiser IE800s right here, so, and I've used these quite a bit on this phone, and they sound phenomenal. These are probably some of the best headphones to use with this phone. So when you plug in your headphones, that's the only way you can access like the quad DAC features. What you can do is, okay, so you can adjust your volume right here, or you could obviously do that, but it doesn't have like, let me see. Inside the quad DAC, you know, settings, it doesn't have that, but say you use your, like, you could do customized equalizer stuff. You can't do that within the quad DAC settings itself, but say you use their stock music app, right? Which I do because it allows you to, let me turn it down a bit more. It allows you to set custom presets on here as well, right? So say you want more bass, you want it to sound more fuller, more surround, you could have that, or you can set it as custom, right? And it allows you to just like change it through here too. So if you want more of any settings that you want specifically, you can do that. I personally use their, I basically use their, pure surround because it just makes stuff sound fuller. And it makes reverb more satisfying to hear, especially with this. But yeah, it's no problem, man. This is what the Q&A is for. just to hear what you guys want to hear about the device itself. Battery life on here. Sorry. I gotta work in a few hours, so I just wanted to do this. I don't have a sound system yet. I do plan on getting one eventually, but as far as screen brightness outdoors versus my Note 8, they're identical. And I could see them no problem outdoors. Like they're both very bright, they're very good to see. And it's very easy to compare the V30 and Note 8 screen because they're both OLED at the end of the day. Sure, Samsung uses Super AMOLED as their marketing term or whatever, and I know that's still their technical way of differentiating their tech from OLED, right? But at the end of the day, I can still see this display as good, if not a bit better than what I can see on the Note 8. I will say that the V30's AOD, it's always on display, is, goddamn. Just opened BBM there. I will say it's always on display is brighter outdoors because you could actually enable stuff like being able to I'll go into it here for you guys. If I can find it. Oh, it's right there. As you guys can see, because there's a brighter display toggle right there for the always on display. And you could do pretty much the same stuff you could do on the Samsung phones, which have multiple different color, or not colors, but I don't know what I'm trying to say. Different kinds of always on display. Say you want a picture of your sister or something, your girlfriend or something that's on your always on display, or your favorite car, or like a miniature wallpaper, you can have it on there as well. It's pretty much the same thing, but I just like this clock because it's big, and since I can't necessarily see without my glasses, it makes it easier for me to see when I'm like have it on my wireless charger propped up right here, and I could just see it from there. Yeah, and I say the phone is still very good. Like when it comes to stuff that the V series used to be known for, like removable battery and stuff like that. The secondary display. LG has done a very good job at keeping this as a V series phone. I'm sorry, I'm trying to make sure this focuses. Keeping this as a V series phone without doing stuff that Samsung does, which is basically make it look exactly like their old stuff. Front fa- Front facing camera's bad on this phone. That's like the one thing I will say that's bad on this phone. It's like when it's in like daylight, when it's clear daylight, it's good. But in like indoor lighting, outdoor lighting, or low light, it's not stellar. I'd say if you truly want this phone and you can live with that compromise, a lot from like what Juan Carlos Bagnell from Pocket Now says, train yourself to use the back facing camera to take photos of yourself for selfies and stuff like that. I've taken a couple to good effect. I'll show you guys here actually. I took one last night. And as you guys can see, you guys probably can't see it as well, but there's very little noise. You guys probably can't see it. There's like no grain and no nothing. It's very nice. And the f1.6 aperture on this 16 megapixel camera is very nice. It actually makes low light photos night and day better even compared to like the Note 8, which has a f1.7 aperture. God, I wish oh, I can do. I didn't even know I could do that. Sorry, I've never done this before. But yeah, as far as the front facing camera goes, it's nothing to write home about. If you truly care about selfies, but you don't want a Note 8, I'd say the Note 8 is leaps and bounds better than what the V30 has to offer in this. This is the one thing that they really have to improve next year. I personally don't care about selfies, but I get I get that people really do value that. And I'm not saying that I'm not saying it's a deal breaker for me because, again, I don't care. But for those who do care, I understand if it is a deal breaker. And yeah, that's one of the main reasons I got this phone is for the DAC and the screen. The screen on this is beautiful. The blue tint, the blue tint is like not something that makes me mad. That a lot of people are, oh, it's a terrible display because it does blue tint, and I'm like, my Note 8 does the same thing. And at times it does it in the exact same angle that my V30 does. And I think the thing to say about, the thing to keep in mind about the V30, and this isn't like the same OLED technology it is the same, but it's not identical to how they used it with like the G Flex line. Because the G Flex to give you guys a visual representation, if I can find my G4. The G Flex line was curved, right? Now, it was more insanely curved than what they did on, the G4. But it was curved in a way that made it feel like a banana phone, right? Whereas the V30, its screen is more curved on the edges, but it's not an edge-to-edge display. It's still flat on the front, which makes it better for stuff like drop tests and stuff like that. And due to the fact that this phone is mil standard A10G, just like the G6 is with its glass back, just like the V10 and V20 are, but they have, an aluminum and a polycarb back, right? Or silicone back. I'm never too sure about which one it is. Battery life and screen on time. Battery life has been great. I haven't necessarily... Screen on time is not a very good metric for me personally to use. But because I haven't been able to necessarily test the phone like that because I work overnights. So I can't look at my screen all night. But I can say, as far as screen on time goes, with stuff like my day job at Sears, where signal is trash and stuff like that, I can get at least 3 to 4, maybe 5 hours of screen on time if I do that. But battery life is very good on this phone regardless. Standby time is insane. It's better than it is on the Note 8. The Note 8 has the problem of Samsung doesn't know how to do truly good battery optimization yet. They will get it done, and this isn't a, praise V30 shit on Note 8 video. I'm just trying to give you guys a comparison. But as far as stuff like the unequal patchy screen, I think... 3,300 milliamp hours is not bad to me either. It's actually a very good sweet spot. And for comparison, the G6 had the exact same size battery. This does way better at that than what the G6 did. The G6 probably got me 3 to 3.5 hours, maybe sometimes 4 of screen on time. This gets me at least 4.5 or 5. The screen issues, as I said, unequal brightness is not something I see on here. I see it more on my Note 8. I think the only issue I have on here is the blue tint. And that's not really an issue to me. But as far as lower brightness goes, it's not something that I can necessarily look. I think the problem with all these reviewers doing this is that they're using specific use cases that aren't necessarily use cases that you do day to day. If it's something that you can see day to day, that's something that I would necessarily say is, is an issue. Something like putting it on 0 brightness, then putting on a gray image is not something you do day to day. And looking at it now from 0% brightness, I'm not seeing any true issues. I'm not seeing anything that's any different. It doesn't look terrible at all. It looks pretty much the same. The only difference I would say is that the Note 8 screen does get dark. It does get dimmer. And that's not something that I necessarily care about, because I either have my phone at 50% or 100% brightness. Because to me, that's a true metric of how I use my phones. If I don't use them at its full brightness, it's not something that... It's something that I have to attest to when it comes. I have to test how good is the screen on time when my battery when my screen is at 100%, right? That's what I want to test, and not if I put the screen to 0% brightness and put a gray image on, is it gonna be blotchy? I don't get that issue at all, even when I just did it. So it's not something that's terrible for me. But I guess another thing that I would like to say is how LG has made this phone essentially a V series phone and not just in name is something I have to commend them for. You know, LG for the longest time has kept stuff like removable batteries, expandable storage, stuff like that for the people that want it, right? And I get that. Eventually they caved in because of stuff like grabbing yet another phone, the G5, where people lambasted it for not having water resistance and stuff like that and feeling cheap, which I don't personally think it feels that bad. And again, as I've said probably a billion times, having a phone that feels, good in the hand is not something that I truly care about, especially when majority of people use cases. I don't like using cases. That's probably like my V20 majority of it. Sure, I bought cases for my V20, but majority of the times I never use cases because it's mil standard A10G, right? Same with this. My G6, I never used a case despite of its build materials, right? Because it's mil standard A10G. This phone is, I think that when it comes to the V30, the one thing that I wish they kept, especially looking at stuff like the Huawei Mate 10 and Mate 10 Pro, I wish they kept the IR blaster. Because they could have done it. The Mate 10 Pro is IP67 water and dust resistant, right? And still has an IR blaster. So I don't see why they couldn't do it. They'll probably bring it back eventually, who knows. But we'll see. Overall performance, I haven't seen, dips or anything like that. I don't think 4 gigabytes of RAM for this phone is bad at all. I think that's a good sweet spot. People saying that, oh, it just feels slow because it has 4 gigs of RAM is not true at all. Because guess what? LG knows how to optimize their stuff, right? And there are cases where people get, units with bad software, but at least I haven't heard anything about, boot loops or anything like that. And even then, they have their second year promise, right? They will indefinitely give you that. Like how, Google just gave. Google's doing the same thing with the Pixel XL 2 due to the screen issues. And what I don't like about how people are handling that is they think that just because it has a not so great screen that it deserves a recall. I'm not gonna get into that because that's just gonna make me rant. But stuff like iPhone 8's expanding and stuff. Software and day-to-day your hardware. Any gripes that I've had with software, there's probably one minor thing. And it's not something that is like so terrible, but okay, let me turn my screen down yet again. Say I swipe, because I have my home screen to where it infinitely loops, right? So I can just quickly go back. When if I didn't press an app, say I scroll from the left to right, you guys can see that it reloads like that. And it just stopped. But it does do that quite a bit. But when I do it like that, it doesn't do it. Which is not something that's terrible, because that's just a minor issue. It's not that the phone hangs up or anything like that. It doesn't do that. It doesn't say, oh, I don't want to go to the home screen or, oh, I don't want to open this app or anything like that. I get that more on my Note 8 than I do on here. Hardware. I haven't really had any issues with hardware. The phone hasn't been overheating. The phone feels, good to hold. Really? Note 8? It's probably just because I'm talking crap about you that you want to decide to go out of focus, right? But don't worry, No Date, I love you. But this is just a comparison. I haven't had any, like, I know there hasn't been any, like, reports of, like, screen burning on the V30 screen. That's been more the Pixel XL2 screen. But as far as that goes, I haven't had any issues with that. That's something that doesn't necessarily manifest within the first few days anyway. So if I do end up getting it, oh well. Because it's a very common thing when it comes to OLED displays. And that's something that people need to realize. Samsung had the problem early in the year. So why you lambasting LG just because they have it too? Like, that's my issue, right? It isn't like, screens are like flickering or screens are doing stuff like having dead pixels. It isn't like that's the case with the screen. Screen burning is a common issue. You guys you guys try to excuse Samsung early in the year for having it. Say, oh, it's an OLED screen, so they tend to have that issue. But when LG has it, what the fuck happens? Oh, shit screen. Oh, Samsung screens are so much better when they're not. I get color shifting. I can actually kind of see it right now, recording the video. I get the same issues with my, Note 8 screen. And I think compared to my S7 last year, I feel that this display is kind of inferior in that regard. Because it just has a whole bunch of issues that my last Samsung phone didn't have. My Note 5 didn't have that issue. And a lot of people hate the Note 5 because it, was just an S6 Edge Plus with an S Pen. But I loved my Note 5. Honestly, if I didn't have to give up my Note 5, I probably wouldn't have got this. Aside from the micro SD and water resistance. But that's not and slightly bigger battery. But V30, I don't feel like there's like a specific thing that I miss from my V20. For my V10, the one thing I do miss is being able to connect a Bluetooth headset and put in your wired headphones and have the software act as like headphone splitters. I miss that. I wish that was there, but that's something that could come in software updates, which I doubt will because that's a niche. I doubt it will because that's a niche feature, but it still would be nice, Are there any more pressing questions that you guys want to ask right now? Yeah, it's no problem, man. Like, as I said, I want to give you guys the information y'all want, right? This phone has been quite controversial as of late because of its screen issues, which I feel were overblown. And I still feel they're overblown because people are acting like Samsung doesn't have the same issues, right? And sure, they've been making screens they've been making these screens since the Samsung Galaxy S. So, of course, they're not going to have those issues really anymore. Like, you can't necessarily get on LG for having the same problems Samsung had, especially when they had them early in the year, like screen burning. And that's really what I want to say, is that the screen is something, I don't want to make yet another 10-minute rant about the screen, but it's like, to say it's the worst screen ever, or to say it's a worse screen than the Note 8 it's not true. Like, don't buy into that hype. Don't buy into that hype, Because a lot of early review units didn't even have that issue, right? And I get that retail units shouldn't have those issues, but I think my thing is this. If head on the display doesn't have any issues, so what if you slightly tilt it up and it has an issue? So what if you slightly tilt it to the right or left, it has an issue? You can still see the display. Is that what matters? It isn't like you slightly tilt it to the left and you just can't see shit anymore. That's the thing. And why do people do that? Why is that even still a metric to go off of? oh, viewing angles are trash. They're not trash. It just has a slightly blue tint. So what? I wish my G4 worked. But yeah, that's pretty much it as far as, like early impressions. I really do. I don't feel any different about this phone than I did when I watched the event. I still feel this is my favorite phone of the year. Display is great. Phenomenal in a lot of cases. Battery life is great. Performance is great. The headphone jack, there's no competition. Even with the V20, which is like the closest competition of the V30 is the V20. That's how good it is. No other phone is competing with it on that level when it comes to headphone jack performance. Even then, the V20 just doesn't have that much clarity. Way better. I say the wide angle is way better. Um, when it comes to stuff like low light, obviously the V30 kills the V20 in low light, but I haven't necessarily had the opportunity to test both of them out. But from every single, and I've taken like hundreds of pictures of the V20, so I know this. The V20 is still a great camera to use. I think if you want stuff like, you just got to remember that these phones, I think, the V10 and V20, V10 and V20, the V series in general, you got to know that these aren't auto shooter phones. But me using auto mode on this is not, it's actually really good, especially compared to the V20. Yeah, the iPhone X. Oh, yeah. Like, I watched this channel called Painfully Honest Tech. He thinks that a lot of, like, stuff that the V30 does is what the iPhone X should have been. Especially when it comes to stuff like the stainless steel rails right here. This feels really nice. And it's kind of a hark back to, the V10, because that also had stainless steel rails, right? I'd say it's decent. When you compare it, the front-facing camera, when you compare it to stuff like, the Note 8, the Note 8 is clearly better, but I wouldn't say it's like, let me actually, it's actually not that bad. Oh yeah, I forgot. I'm actually, let me do it right now. Take a picture. Oh great. Give me 1 second, you guys. Mom's calling. Sorry, you guys. I'm actually getting a different day job, so my mom's asking me a billion different questions right now. But I think the front facing camera on the V30 is not, it'll get the job done. Like, it's very soft, and I think that's the problem that it has. Like, if they were to like have like slight sharpening of the images, it would be better. If it was just a higher resolution, front facing camera, like if it was an 8 megapixel front facing camera, like the one the G4 has. The G4 is probably still my favorite front facing camera. And I think the V30, I think the best thing that they have done when it comes to the manual mode is add graphy. Because let me show you guys here real quick. You go into manual mode, whether manual photo mode, right? And you guys see, try not to drop the phone. You see graphy right here, right? You click that and you get different scenes as far as what you want the scene to look like, and not take the photo. But say you pick something that's a bit dark, it'll tell you that it's underexposed, and it'll tell you to adjust that stuff, right? And that's something that is a really neat feature. I think the best thing LG is doing right now is they're innovating in ways that nobody is thinking of innovating in. Make a manual mode, but don't just make it something that's just this, like, unusable feature to the common user, right? And that's what I like about it. When people think innovation, they just think hardware, right? LG is innovating in hardware and software with this. It has a 10-bit color sensor in here, right? And the colors that come out of this camera are very good. The glass lens, it looks way better than what it does on something like, the V20 and even the Note 8. I really hope people do gravitate towards this phone and learn to use its settings. Because a lot of people, when they come from stuff like the iPhone, they just want a great auto shooter, right? Night mode, well, do you mean like blue light filter, or do you mean like night shooting mode? Because it does have a blue light filter, or comfort view mode. It definitely does have that. I never use it, but it definitely does have that. It's in the quick toggles here. I have it way back here because I don't use it, but as you guys can see, it just changes like that. But a night mode, let me see. As far as camera goes, let me check here. No night mode as far as, the camera goes. But I'd say the best way to do that is to mitigate that is to go into graphy, go into your manual mode, your manual camera mode, and pick like something that, uses the, sorry, I'm trying to yeah, the quality of the camera is different depending on who you talk to. A lot of people think it's not that great because they're used to what the iPhone or the Pixel or Samsung phones can do. I personally like how LG's auto mode does stuff. Like, fuck, sorry, I don't know. There's this there's something that's very, satisfying about looking at. So, like, there's something that was very, like, weird when I took, like, an earlier shot. I don't know why I was saying very bad connection, but when I was taking a shot earlier in the day, say it was like 7 a.m. because I just got off work, like, initially the photo looked grayish, right? But then, I don't know why I keep doing that. When I turned the the brightness down, right? Or probably, well, now when I actually focused on the photo, it like shifted the color and it made it look better. I took the same, it made it look really nice. And when I took the same picture with the Note 8, it looked very gray. It looked very overcast. It looked kind of off. It didn't look like it did in real life. And I think that's where this phone shines. It makes photos look, real life photos look very good. It doesn't look oversaturated. It doesn't look cartoony. It doesn't look like a Michael Bay film. It looks like something that is very true to life, but not bland. You know, a lot of reviewers say that when you take a picture with something like a V20 or so, just to have a comparison, or even outdoor visibility is great. I said it earlier, but I'll say it again. It's very good, especially compared to something like the Note 8, which is something that people like to compare it to. Both these phones look great. Like, you can see it very clearly. Like, you don't have to like squint. And the stabilization of the camera. I haven't had the opportunity to do that. I will touch on that in my review, which I might actually take a bit more time to do my review. I'll probably have it out next week, if not at the end of this week. Stabilization of the camera, for what I've seen, is actually really good, but I haven't actually had time to like find a subject that's moving or be moving. I'll do what I typically do and do a video test, but I'm gonna have to do that when I'm like walking, like in the daytime or something. I might actually do that pretty soon before I end up getting some sleep. But from what I can tell, it's actually very good. But I've got to do more testing before I say, oh, it's great. Seeing various video stabilization is not that good. Well, it depends. A lot of people just use like there are different ways to make, the recording look stable. And I think when you use stuff like their hybrid electronic image stabilization with its optical image stabilization, it looks weird. But I think when you turn that off and that's their steady record, that you get a way better result and it looks way better. Because I've seen that too when stuff on the phone was initially coming out, right? I saw it too. I know what you're talking about. But let me actually I'm gonna have to turn my display up so I can actually see. But this is kind of a weird thing to do on camera, but I'm trying to see. As far as like adjusting the light and stuff, but as far as adjusting the light, it does really good. It doesn't like jank out and like frame drop like iPhones tend to do, where like stutters before it like adjusts to the light. Is very smooth when it does that. But I will say autofocus on here is very improved. The laser autofocus on this phone is very nice. Like, depending on your lighting conditions, it can be as fast as, say, Samsung's, dual pixel stuff too. It's very fast, and it locks on way better than what Samsung's does. Because Samsung's tends to go out of focus and in focus. Especially if you've seen some of my recent videos using my Note 8. Sorry, I'm checking my battery life. Using my Note 8. Where it tends to go out of focus and try to get back in focus, but then blow out of focus again. That's the problem I have with my Note 8 and even my S7, where it would do that. My V series phones, V10, V20, V30, never had that issue. Mainly because I would use it in manual mode, because I feel that's the way a V series phone is intended to be used. I don't feel that people use it properly when they just, oh, I'm just using auto mode. No, at least learn. And it does a very good job at teaching you too. When you go into something like, I don't know why I keep saying very bad connection, but when you go into your manual mode, oh yeah, I do have a cover. I do have a case. I have a, where is that? It's the V21. I have the Tech 21 case that I got from T-Mobile like a week before I got the phone. And it looks very nice. It complements the phone very well. It's just that in videos, I like to have the phone like flash out, because a lot of people complain about having cases on the phone during the video. Plus I like to feel the phone in my hand when I'm at home as well. But okay, say you go into your manual mode. You go into your settings, you scroll all the way down, you go to help. Oh, of course, I gotta. Like, it'll teach you every single thing about what the manual mode does and what each setting does. And that is a very nice touch. I think LG knocked it out of the park into doing that. I wish they would have it more upfront, so you don't have to like dig into the settings to do it. And that's another thing I don't like about the software on the camera, is that I wish more modes were front and center. I think that has a lot to do with the fact that oh, I definitely will. It's either I'll do that or I'll just make a separate video with just like stills and video, so I don't make like an hour long video like I am now. I will definitely put stills. I'll either put them in the video, or I'll in the review video, or I'll just make a separate video consisting of stills and of just the video itself. Video, like video recording itself. Um, Let me think. I think that's it as far as that goes. There hasn't been much that I have to say. There isn't really much more that I have to say about the phone. I think so far it's really been stellar. It's been a great experience to use, and I think it's been marred by a lot of reviewers saying that the screen is crap because of the simple fact that it has a shifting tint when you shift the screen. I don't think that's a big issue for me. And honestly, if it's not a big issue for you, the screen is still clear. It's vivid. It's bright. Sharp. It may not be as sharp as Samsung's, but that's because they have a 2960 by 1440 panel. This has 2880, right? So you can't necessarily get on LG for that, because they're using more standard aspect ratio. They're using 18 by 9, right? Samsung wants to go 18.5 by 9 and still have you stretch games to fit their screen, right? Or content to fit their screen. Yeah, I say that. Like in this, and as soon as I got both phones and looked at them, I was like, I don't really see how the V30 screen is crap. I really need to stop saying the name of the phone, because voice unlock is making it go off. Even though I'm not saying hi V30, and it goes on like that. I do believe that the one thing that I said in my versus video between the two is that I do wish LG would have like, a force home button down there, so that I could hard press into the display and say, activate the screen or, exit apps without having to swipe up, then press the, virtual home buttons. I do wish that was a thing. More manufacturers do indeed need to adopt that. But double tap to wake still works and stuff like that. And still, if you have like face unlock or something, you could enable it so that it could just wake your phone up, and then you could enable it to like not unlock the phone. So say you want to look at like notifications you got or something, you do that and it'll still unlock it. You just have to swipe and it'll just bring it to your home. Very akin to like the iPhone 10, which I do see that as a thing. I do see that as a very, after seeing it on the V30 and how that works, I do see it as a value add that it doesn't just bring you automatically to your home screen. Sure, it's a bit tedious, and I do wish Apple did decide to keep the fingerprint sensor at least, but they want to bank on something and make something seem innovative, right? All right, so I'm going to be closing out here soon because I actually have to get to sleep. Are there any more pressing questions that you guys have? Like anything that you need to know that... With launchers, the thing that you can do is you can double tap in the status bar and it'll do it. Like, that's one thing I've noticed using different launchers. Like, say, where's my V10? Say with my V10, I'm using Microsoft's launcher. What you can do is you could double tap, if I can do it properly. You could double tap in the status bar and it'll just automatically go off. It still works, but it doesn't work on any empty part of the screen like on LG's launcher, which I do think is something that more, developers need to make a thing, because double knock on is like, it's a feature, it's a very like slept on feature. It's something that a lot of, manufacturers and a lot of like developers need to take into account when making their launcher and stuff. All right. Thank you. Looking forward to seeing, what you think about the phone after my review, or if you have the phone then. Fingerprint sensor is great. It's way better than what, I've never had an issue with any like LG phone fingerprint sensors. They've been fast. A lot of people say they tend to, slow down and not be as accurate over time. I've never had that issue, but as far as accuracy, compared to, my immediate flagship phone now, the Note 8, it's night and day better. It works 100% of the time. There's no missed touches. Nothing. Like with the Note 8, the weird thing is that sometimes you gotta like legitimately hard press into the fingerprint sensor for it to work. Whereas with LG, say I can just like lightly tap it and it'll just go in. And it'll just work like that. And that's something that a lot of, like, even like Huawei phones and stuff do that. I wouldn't say fast. You have to train it a bunch, because the nice thing about LG's Face Unlock is that it does pretty much the exact same thing Apple's does, but the thing that you got to do is that you got to train it a bunch. I don't think that's the right. So what you could do is that you could pick improve face recognition right here. And what it'll tell you is yeah, that's probably the one thing about the V10 that's bad, but it's still fast. The fingerprint sensor is still fast. It still works very good, despite being a 2-year-old phone. And what it tells you right here, and when you do face recognition to approve it, is that it says, show what you look like in different conditions. For instance, in different lighting. with and without, glasses, like, you see me right here. Bearded and clean shaven, which I haven't necessarily had my beard as, like, fro-y as it used to be. I've actually been keeping up of having my hair cut, and it will just, like, keep learning over time what your face looks like. It's very intuitive and it's very nice. And it's fast, too. Like, say, okay, so I look at it, right? Oh, wait. Let me do it. It wakes the phone. Then, okay, I'm in bad lighting, so it's not going to do it as well. But normally, when I'm, like, on the bus or something, it'll come up, and then it'll just say stuff like, it'll say, unlocked, swipe screen to unlock. Or I think it says face recognize, swipe screen to unlock, or something like that. And it works, like, if not 100% of the time, majority of the time. But yeah, this video is pretty long now. Sorry about that. As I said, my review will be coming within the next, maybe, if not this Friday, at least the following Monday after that. So, the 20th of November. I think that is it. That's on the 20th of November. What the fuck am I talking about? Hold on, give me 1 minute. I'm having a brain fart. Okay, so today is the 29th. It's the 6th. At least by the 6th, I will have my review out. So just keep that in mind. I will either make a separate video based on the camera and stuff like that. Because I don't want to, I want to have to do a whole bunch of editing because I end up being tired and I don't want to mess it up. But I will at least do a separate video solely based on the camera and solely based on gaming, audio, and stuff like that. Because I don't want this to just be like talking a whole bunch on it, but yeah, and yeah, it's no problem. It's definitely no problem. I want to give you guys what you want, man. You guys want to know about this phone? It's a very, great phone. And from what I can say now, I'd say it's, I'd say if you're a Note fan and you're disappointed with what the Note 8 has to offer, I'd say go with the V30. Especially if you don't care about stuff like the blue tint and stuff like that. That's something that will eventually go away over time. Like, LG has already made 2 different phones with OLED displays right now in the same year. Give it by at least the V40 that they will at least have majority of these, like, huge issues ironed out. Google wouldn't have invested over $1 billion in LG Display to manufacture OLED displays if they didn't think they would be quality, at least eventually, right? Now, it sucks that the problems have manifested now and that people are just buying into the hype, but as far as that goes, you gotta treat it as a first-gen product, because it is technically, it's the first version of this variant of POLED, the first 18:9 version of OLED, the first non-massively curved version of OLED and stuff like POLED and stuff like that. That's what people got to keep in mind. They can't just say that, oh, it's not a Samsung display, so it's shit. And that's where I have issues, because Samsung hasn't been doing the greatest job with their displays either. I've been seeing certain stuff, like I said, and I'm not going to keep going into that, but yeah. Yeah, that's not if... Yeah, probably. That's not if, phones are drastically different by then, which I really hope isn't the case. Because I like being able to talk about hardware and how software works with that hardware. But yeah, I'm getting another call. So yeah, this is Sparta. Thank you guys for watching. Thanks for the support. Hope you guys have a good Sunday morning or afternoon, whatever time of day it is in your area. Have a good one.